Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into the origins of PayPal. Yeah, using Jimmy Soni's book, The Founders. We're not just looking at how they revolutionized online payments, but also how this group, the so-called PayPal Mafia, ended up shaping so much of Silicon Valley and beyond. It's a pretty wild ride.
What gets me is how the founders of PayPal, think about it, they're practically the definition of online transactions, right? Well, they didn't actually start out trying to create a financial system at all. They were in a totally different world at first.
Really, online payments wasn't their first idea. So before all that, what were they focused on?
Their first venture, believe it or not, it was all about cryptography software. And get this for PDAs, specifically Palm Pilots.
Palm Pilots, wow, that does take you back. So we're talking serious security for your Palm Pilots to-do list, huh?
Exactly. Can you imagine? Pretty far from the online payment giant we know today, huh?
That's for sure. So what was the turning point? What made them shift gears to online payments?
They kind of figured out pretty quick that the whole Palm Pilot market wasn't exactly booming, but being the sharp guys they were, they also saw how fast the internet was growing. That's when the light bulb went off, you know? Aha. Use their cryptography skills to make online transactions safe and secure.
So instead of locking down your Palm Pilot contacts, they turned their attention to protecting your bank account. That's a pretty big jump. Was that transition a smooth one?
Not really, no. Sony's book actually describes their early attempts to find what we call product market fit. It was a ton of experimenting, trial and error. And one of the things they struggled with was, well, how to make their system something that a lot of people would want to use. At first, they tried giving out small amounts of money, like little incentives, just to get people to sign up.
That's a pretty interesting approach. Sounds like they were thinking outside the box to gain some traction. Did it work?
It was a mixed bag, to be honest. Sure, it got some people interested, but it wasn't something they could keep doing long term, not a sustainable strategy. What really got them going, got them growing, was their ability to adapt, to change things up, to iterate.
Samina really highlights the personalities, all those different skills within the team. You've got Peter Thiel, the strategy guy, Max Levchin, the coding genius, Elon Musk, the visionary, and then others like Reid Hoffman, the master networker, and Roelof Botha, the finance architect. It's a pretty remarkable lineup when you think about it. How did this mix, this blend of personalities, how did it contribute to PayPal's success?
I think the diversity was key. Thiel, with his background in law and venture capital, he brought that strategic thinking to the table. And Levchin, he'd honed his coding skills, get this, in post-Soviet Ukraine. Tough environment. But it gave him this incredible technical foundation for PayPal. And then you've got Musk, always pushing the limits, never satisfied with the status quo, right? He pushed the boundaries of what everyone thought was possible. And Hoffman, with his talent for connecting people and ideas, well, he helped build those crucial bridges that PayPal needed to thrive.
So it wasn't about one single genius, but a synergy of all those talents that made the difference, huh? It really goes to show the power of teamwork, right? Different perspectives coming together, which is something you see again and again in companies that become really successful. But let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the tech side of things. These guys were pioneers in online payments. So what were some of those technical hurdles they had to overcome to build a system that people would trust?
Oh, the biggest one, without a doubt, was security. Remember, this was the internet's early days. People were still really wary of sharing their credit card info online. If they wanted to win people's trust, PayPal had to build something that wasn't just secure, but also super easy to use.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with the internet still being kind of like the Wild West back then. How did they address those security fears?
Security was everything. They knew that. They were dealing with incredibly sensitive data. Any breach could have been a disaster. So they really went all in on developing these cutting-edge fraud detection algorithms. And one thing they really had to combat, phishing attacks, where scammers try to trick people into giving up their login info.
Phishing, yeah. That's still a problem even today. How did PayPal handle that back then?
It was a multi-layered approach. They came up with algorithms that watched for suspicious behavior, like if someone was logging in from a weird location or suddenly making a much larger transaction than usual, the system would flag it. Hold on, something's not right. They also brought in two-factor authentication, which added another layer of protection for accounts.
Sounds like they were way ahead of the curve when it came to online security. And that didn't just protect their users, right? It helped build trust in the whole idea of doing transactions online.
Absolutely, security was huge. But they were also committed to making the whole system user-friendly. Their goal was to make sending and receiving money online as easy as sending an email. Simple, intuitive.
And of course, we can't talk about user-friendliness without mentioning that game-changing partnership with eBay. Tell me about that.
So eBay at the time was this rapidly growing online marketplace, but their own payment system, BillPoint, it was clunky, unreliable. PayPal saw their chance. They swooped in and quickly became the go-to choice for buyers and sellers on eBay.
So they basically provided the missing piece for eBay, made transactions smooth and secure for, millions of users. They really were in the right place at the right time, it seems.
You could say that, yeah, that integration with eBay was a genius move. It gave them access to this massive user base, boom, just like that. And that shot them right to the forefront of e-commerce.
But I'm guessing this newfound success didn't come without its share of challenges, right? What was the competitive landscape like back then?
Oh man, the online payment space, it was a battleground. They were up against big players like banks, credit card companies, and then ambitious startups too, like X.com, that was Elon Musk's own venture. Even eBay, once they realized how important online payments were, they became a competitor with BillPoint.
So how did PayPal manage to stand out, to differentiate themselves in such a cutthroat environment? It sounds like they had some pretty formidable opponents.
Well, they had a few aces up their sleeve. Their system was just easier to use, more secure than a lot of the alternatives. And they were smart about partnerships, like the one with eBay. It was a way to gain market share. And they really knew how to use things like buyer and seller protection and those referral bonuses. All that stuff was designed to attract users and keep them coming back.
So it wasn't just the tech, they were also using clever strategies to stay ahead of the competition, huh?
Exactly. Constant innovation, not just with the technology, but also with their business model, their marketing. They understood to win in this game, you got to be adaptable, always thinking one step ahead.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Their pivot from cryptography to online payments, how they built this incredible team, their groundbreaking approach to security, and how they navigated a super competitive landscape. But this is just the beginning. Their journey takes even more twists and turns as they face the challenges of scaling up. And that's exactly what we'll be diving into in part 2 of our deep dive into the founders.
Oh yeah, the story just gets more interesting from here. Buckle up.
So we left off with PayPal, basically conquering the eBay marketplace and facing off against some serious competition, big players, ambitious startups, the whole thing. Now let's get into how they tackled the next big hurdle, scaling up. Sony's book really gets into the financial pressure they were under during this crazy period of growth.
Oh yeah, funding. It was make or break time. In those early days, it was a lot of bootstrapping, working around the clock, personal sacrifices, just to keep the lights on. But they realized pretty quickly to achieve those big goals, they were going to need a serious injection of capital.
And that's where venture capitalists come in, right? Investors who specialize in, let's be honest, high-risk, high-reward ventures, especially in the tech world. Sony describes those pitches, trying to win over those investors. They were scrutinizing every single detail of PayPal's business model, all those growth projections. Must have been intense.
Intense is an understatement. Attracting VC money is never easy, especially when you're in a market that's still pretty new, unproven. The PayPal founders, they had to convince these investors that their vision for online payments, it wasn't just some pipe dream, it was viable, and it had the potential to be huge.
And it seems they did convince them. The founders goes into how PayPal managed to secure funding from some big names in venture capital. Sequoia Capital, for instance, who'd backed companies like Google and Apple. That's a pretty serious vote of confidence right there. But all that cash, it came with strings attached, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Venture capitalists, they're not just handing out money for fun. They want a return on their investment, and they want a big one. So that put a ton of pressure on PayPal, Hit those ambitious growth targets, show a clear path to actually making a profit. They had to walk this tightrope between sticking to their original vision and, the demands of the market, keeping their investors happy.
It's the classic founder's dilemma, right? How do you keep that entrepreneurial spirit alive, that drive to innovate, while also playing the game, dealing with the realities of the business world? Sony's book gives us a peek behind the curtain, into those internal debates, the strategic decisions that the leadership team was wrestling with.
Tough choices. Do we focus on growing the user base, or do we prioritize making money, security, or speed? Which one comes first? Every decision had consequences. It was high-stakes stuff.
And they weren't just thinking about conquering the U.S. market either. They had global ambitions right from the start. Going international, though, that adds a whole other level of complexity, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Try adapting your platform to different languages, currencies, all those different regulations. What flies in one country might not work in another. Consumer behavior, how people prefer to pay, even their attitude towards doing transactions online. It's all different around the world.
So how did PayPal approach that whole global expansion thing? Sony spends a lot of time on their international strategy in the book.
They went local. They understood that a one-size-fits-all approach wasn't going to cut it. They really invested in understanding the little details of each region, hired local experts, adapted their platform to fit specific needs.
That sounds like a huge undertaking. It's not just translating a website, is it? It's about really understanding the culture, the rules of each new market.
Exactly. Different legal frameworks, different ways of handling payments, even just the level of trust people have. In some countries, people are all about credit cards. Others, it's bank transfers or some other method.
And all this while they're still dealing with fraudsters, competitors, and the tech world is constantly changing, right? Sounds like they were juggling about a million things at once.
You got it. And on top of all that, they had to grow their team, keep up with that crazy growth. I mean, you can have the best tech, the smartest strategy, but without the right people to make it happen, you're going nowhere.
So it wasn't just about brilliant engineers anymore. They needed people who could manage that expansion, build those systems to handle it all, keep that company culture strong through all that change. So Lindy talks about how PayPal developed this, kind of a unique approach to hiring, attracting talent from all over, building a culture that was all about innovation.
They wanted people who could think on their feet, solve problems in creative ways, even if it meant going against the grain, challenging the old ways of doing things. Not just skills, it was the mindset,
And it wasn't just attracting the talent, but creating the environment for them to do their best work. What was that culture like at PayPal during that time? Hypergrowth, as they call it.
Sony describes it as, super competitive, sure, but also incredibly stimulating intellectually. They encouraged debate, questioning assumptions, always pushing each other to think bigger, bolder. It was like this shared mission, this belief that they were building something truly revolutionary.
Sounds intense. A real pressure cooker, but also maybe like a crucible, where those brilliant minds could come together, collaborate, and create something amazing. Which brings us to something that's become almost synonymous with PayPal, the PayPal Mafia.
Oh, yes. The Mafia.
This term, sometimes it's admiration, sometimes apprehension, but it refers to that group of PayPal alumni who went on to achieve incredible things in tech, finance, even space exploration. But before we jump into all their post-PayPal accomplishments, what was it about this particular group that made them so special?
Their time at PayPal, it was a defining experience, They went through so much together, faced huge challenges, made those bold decisions, and in the end, achieved incredible success. That shared experience, it created this bond between them, a sense of camaraderie that lasted even after they moved on.
So it was more than just working together. It was like going through this entrepreneurial boot camp together, right? Facing down those obstacles, celebrating the wins, learning from the missteps.
Exactly. They learned to trust each other's instincts, rely on each other's strengths, push each other to be better, and that trust, that mutual respect, it would be huge for them later on.
And it wasn't just the shared experience, was it? It was also that unique mix of talent they had in that group. Visionary, strategists, engineers, designers, networkers, each one bringing something different to the table.
Right place, right time, right mix of skills and personalities. It was the perfect storm. And they all had this shared belief that they could actually change the world. That's powerful stuff.
So they had that shared experience, diverse talents, unwavering ambition. What else contributed to their success, both individually and as a group,
One big thing was their willingness to help each other out, even after they left PayPal. They invested in each other's ventures, gave advice, mentored, opened doors for each other using their networks.
So they built this whole ecosystem of support, a network that reached far beyond PayPal's walls.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about making money. It was about shared values, that belief in innovation, wanting to make a positive impact on the world. They weren't just colleagues. They were friends, allies, collaborators on this grand scale.
So we've covered a lot, the challenges of scaling up, those make or break decisions, building the right team, that unique bond that created what we know as the PayPal Mafia. And now in part 3, we'll get into the amazing achievements of this group, their lasting impact on tech and beyond. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
You won't believe what these folks went on to do. Stay tuned.
We've been on this incredible journey with PayPal, from their unusual start to becoming, a global payments powerhouse. And we've talked about that unique bond that formed between the team members, the infamous PayPal Mafia. So now let's really dig into the impact they've had, how they've shaped tech, and really the world beyond.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it, to see how these individuals took what they learned from those PayPal days and applied it to such different ventures. Their entrepreneurial spirit, that innovative thinking, it's left a mark for sure.
Let's start with Peter Thiel. He's become one of the biggest names in Silicon Valley. What were some of his big moves after leaving PayPal?
Well, Thiel co-founded Palantir Technologies, right? As a data analytics company, plays a big role in intelligence and security. He was also an early investor in Facebook, really crucial in their growth, especially in those early years. And his investment firm, Founders Fund, they've backed some of the most successful tech companies in the last couple of decades. SpaceX, Spotify, just to name a few.
He seems to have this talent for spotting the companies that are going to disrupt whole industries. He's not just an investor, he's a visionary, someone who's shaping where technology is going. And speaking of visionaries, we have to talk about Elon Musk. He's become a household name, the ambitious ventures of his.
Musk's story is, well, it's almost larger than life, isn't it? He took his earnings from the sale of PayPal and basically poured them into ventures that honestly at the time seemed kind of crazy, like Tesla. Revolutionized the car industry with electric vehicles, taking on the giants, the gas-powered cars that have been dominant for, a century?
And he didn't stop there. SpaceX, his aerospace company, his goal, to make space travel more accessible, and ultimately to establish a human colony on Mars. And then there's Neuralinks, where he's diving into brain-computer interfaces, trying to enhance human capabilities, merge humans and technology. It's wild stuff.
It is. Musk's companies are pushing the limits of what we thought was possible. He's living proof of what happens when you combine ambition, innovation, and this relentless pursuit of what others might call impossible.
Absolutely. And let's not forget Reid Hoffman. His path after PayPal was a bit different, but just as impactful.
Hoffman, he saw the power of connections, how important it was to have a platform that could connect professionals in a meaningful way. That's what led him to co-found LinkedIn. It's become the biggest professional networking site in the world. Completely changed how people connect, find opportunities.
LinkedIn has definitely transformed how people manage their careers, find jobs, build those professional relationships. It's a must-have for anyone in business these days. And what about Max Levchin, the one who built that super robust security system for PayPal? What path did he take?
Levchin, he stuck with his passion for using technology to solve real-world problems. So he founded Affirm. It's a company trying to make credit more transparent, more accessible. Affirm lets people finance purchases over time, but with clear, simple terms. He's taking on those traditional lenders, the ones with all the hidden fees and complicated rules.
So he's taken those lessons from building a secure, user-friendly payment system and applying them to consumer finance. It's amazing, isn't it, to see how these folks have taken their expertise and gone in such different directions, impacting so many industries. But what was it about their experience at PayPal that set them up for all this success?
Sony's book offers some clues, for sure. That whole PayPal environment, it was this breeding ground for competition, tough debates, a willingness to question everything. They were constantly pushing each other to think bigger, take risks, and adapt quickly.
Sounds like they created this kind of intellectual pressure cooker where those great ideas were forged and tested through constant challenge and collaboration.
It wasn't enough to just have an idea, though. They had to build it, test it, make it better, and then get it out into the world. That combination of visionary thinking and, just as important, execution, it's a big part of why they've been so successful.
And it wasn't just about individual success either. They helped each other along the way, investing in each other's companies, mentoring, opening doors with their connections.
Yeah, that collaborative spirit, that mutual support, it's really something. They understand that success isn't a zero-sum game. Helping each other succeed creates this ripple effect. It benefits the whole ecosystem.
So the PayPal Mafia isn't just a bunch of successful individuals. It's proof of what can happen when you have that shared experience, a strong network, a culture of innovation and collaboration. Their story is a valuable lesson for anyone who wants to make a real difference in the world. It's about embracing challenges, thinking big, and surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, who support you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This deep dive into the world of PayPal and that PayPal Mafia, it's been a fascinating journey. And for anyone who wants to go even deeper, I highly recommend The Founders by Jimmy Soni. It's a great read, gives you a real look into the world of entrepreneurship, innovation, and that drive, that ambition that can really push humans to achieve amazing things.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. What are your big ideas? What challenges are you burning to tackle? And how can you build that network, the one that will support your goals and help you achieve them? Because the story of PayPal and its founders, it's a powerful reminder that anything is possible when you have the vision, the determination, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. The sky's the limit. 2-2-0.